She was forced to play the hardest piece in the world just to be laughed at by the upper class. A room of debutantes giggled. Careful. That piano's worth more than your entire life. Everyone waited for the moment she'd falter, miss a note, humiliate herself. Then she placed her hands on the keys, and by the fourth bar, the entire ballroom fell silent. Because the genius they had mocked had just resurrected under a spotlight they weren't worthy to stand beneath. The Royal Arts Gala at Cavendish Castle was a spectacle of opulence. Its marble hall aglow with golden chandeliers that dripped light like molten honey. The air was thick with the scent of roses and ambition. As Europe's elite donors, critics, and debutantes with polished resumes mingled in a dance of power. At the center of the hall stood a Steinway & Sons Imperial Grand, its ebony curves gleaming like a sacred artifact. Cordoned off by velvet ropes, only the worthy could touch it, a privilege reserved for those with pedigrees as polished as the piano's finish. Evelyn Hart sat in the farthest corner, in the logistics personnel area, her black cotton dress plain against the sea of silk and sequins. Her flat shoes were scuffed, her side ponytail loose, strands brushing her cheek. She was here as a +1 to her friend Mia, a catering staff member, and had been told to stay seated, to blend into the shadows. But her eyes were locked on the piano, her fingers trembling faintly not with fear, but with a memory that burned. She sat still, her posture calm, her silence a fortress. But the piano called to her, its keys a map to a life she'd left behind. As Evelyn sat quietly, a socialite in a sapphire gown approached the logistics area, her voice carrying across the hall. "Is this the caterer's friend?" she asked. Loud enough for nearby guests to turn. "She looks like she's here to bus tables, not admire art." The crowd chuckled, their eyes dissecting Evelyn's plain dress. "I bet she's never even heard Liszt." The socialite continued, her tone dripping with condescension. "Why let her near the Steinway? It's insulting." Evelyn's fingers tightened around her sapphire ring, the only remnant of her past life. But she kept her gaze on the piano. The socialite's entourage joined in, one snapping a photo. "For my blog, Gala Faux Pas," she said, laughing. The public shaming was deliberate, each word a lash meant to expose Evelyn's supposed inferiority. Guests whispered, their amusement a growing storm, amplifying her isolation. Her silence was a fortress, but the socialite's cruelty stung, a reminder that her presence was a spectacle to these people. As Evelyn sat in the logistics area, a group of waitstaff, emboldened by the gala's elite atmosphere, whispered nearby, their trays clinking. "Look at her staring at the piano like she belongs here," one said, his voice low but sharp. "Probably thinks she's in a fairy tale." Another, balancing a tray of champagne, smirked. "That dress, did she pull it from a laundry basket?" The words carried to Evelyn, each one a deliberate sting, her black cotton dress suddenly feeling heavier. She kept her eyes on the piano, her fingers still. But the waitstaff's mockery burned, their betrayal sharper because they, too, were outsiders. A debutante overheard and laughed, amplifying the scorn. "Even the help knows she's out of place," she said, loud enough for others to turn. Evelyn's sapphire ring glinted, a quiet anchor, but the humiliation was relentless. The crowd's judgment now echoed by those meant to be invisible. Her silence held, but the weight of their words pressed harder, a reminder that no one saw her as more than a joke. During a charity auction pause, the auctioneer, a charismatic man in a velvet jacket, spotted Evelyn near the logistics area and seized the moment for laughs. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a surprise guest," he announced, his voice booming through the hall. "This young lady dreams of the Steinway. Shall we bid for her to play a nursery rhyme?" The crowd roared with laughter, glasses clinking as they turned to stare. Evelyn's cheeks burned, but she kept her eyes on the piano, her sapphire ring a quiet anchor. "Starting bid £1 for her village talent," he continued, winking at Charlotte. The mockery was a performance, each word designed to degrade her. A debutante called out, "I'll bid 0, she'll break the keys." The laughter swelled, relentless and cruel. Evelyn's heart raced, but her face remained serene, her silence a shield against the auctioneer's venom. The public humiliation was a new low, turning her presence into a joke for the elite to bid on. The gala buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, the elite parading their wealth like plumage. Evelyn's gaze never wavered, her hands folded in her lap. But the room noticed her. Charlotte Whitford, a Vienna-trained pianist with a diamond choker and a reputation for ruthlessness, spotted Evelyn's stare and sauntered over, her entourage trailing like vultures. "Oh, you like the piano?" Charlotte's voice was syrupy, her smile ablade. "Sorry. Dear, this isn't a vintage wedding shoot backdrop." The debutantes around her giggled, their designer gowns rustling, a drunken trust fund air. Oliver leaned in, his breath sour with champagne. "I bet she thinks this is a karaoke bar back in her village." He sneered, his voice loud enough to draw eyes. Another girl, her lips painted crimson, smirked. Maybe she wants to play Twinkle Twinkle, a tribute to her childhood. The laughter swelled, sharp and deliberate, cutting through the hall. Evelyn's fingers twitched, but she didn't look up. Her eyes still on the piano, her silence a shield. Charlotte leaned closer, her perfume suffocating. "Come on then, darling, play something. If I'm entertained, I might even let you pose with it." The crowd around them tittered, sensing a spectacle, their eyes hungry for humiliation. The gala's printed program, embossed with gold, listed the evening's performers, Charlotte Whitford among them, but Evelyn's name was nowhere to be found. Despite her presence, a group of critics near Evelyn's seat flipped through the pages, their voices loud. "Who's this? Nobody in the cheap dress?" one asked, glancing at her. "Not even worth a mention." Another replied, tossing the program aside, probably snuck in with the caterers. The crowd around them chuckled, the dismissal public and cutting. Evelyn overheard, her heart tightening, but she kept her gaze on the piano, her sapphire ring a silent rebellion. She'd never asked to be recognized, but the erasure stung, her existence reduced to a footnote. A debutante picked up the discarded program, smirking. "Maybe she's here to clean the keys after Charlotte plays," she said, her voice carrying. The laughter grew, each word a reminder that Evelyn was invisible to this world. Her silence was her strength. But the crowd's cruelty made it a heavy burden. Before Evelyn was dragged to the stage, another pianist, a rival of Charlotte's named Elise, addressed the crowd from the stage. "I hear we have an amateur joining us," she said, her voice silky but sharp. "Let's hope she doesn't disgrace the Steinway with her rustic skills." The guests laughed, their eyes locking onto Evelyn as she stood near the ropes. Elise continued, her smile venomous. "Perhaps she'll play something from her village square. Do they even have pianos there?" The crowd's amusement was a tidal wave, each word a deliberate cut. Evelyn's black dress felt heavier, but she kept her posture straight, her sapphire ring catching the light. Elise's taunt was professional, meant to preemptively discredit any talent Evelyn might have. A critic nodded, murmuring, "This will be embarrassing." The anticipation of her failure grew, the room united in its scorn. Evelyn's silence held, but the pianist's words were a public execution, meant to bury her before she touched the keys. Evelyn's heart pounded, but her face remained serene, her gaze steady. She didn't want their stage, their spotlight, but the taunts grew louder, the crowd's anticipation a living thing. "Go on, village girl," Oliver called, his voice slurring. "Show us what you've got." Another debutante, her pearls glinting, added, "Don't break the keys, they're ivory, not plastic." The laughter was a wave now, crashing over her. Mia, serving drinks nearby, caught Evelyn's eye, her face pale with worry. Evelyn shook her head faintly, a silent reassurance. She rose, her movement slow, deliberate, her black dress absorbing the light. The crowd parted, their whispers a chorus of scorn. As she walked toward the Steinway, a hotel staff member approached, his voice low. "Should I call security?" Evelyn shook her head again, her eyes never leaving the piano. As Evelyn walked toward the stage, Charlotte's entourage closed in, their movements deliberate. One girl, her gown shimmering, accidentally bumped Evelyn's shoulder, nearly knocking her off balance. "Oops, didn't see you there," she said, her voice mock-sweet. Another tugged at Evelyn's ponytail, loosening it further. "Fix your hair." "Darling, it's a mess," she sneered. Her friends laughing. The crowd watched, their amusement growing. As Evelyn steadied herself, her black dress creased from the shove. The physical taunts were a new low, a violation of her space meant to degrade her further. "She's like a stray dog wandering in," a third girl said, loud enough for all to hear. Evelyn's sapphire ring caught the light, a silent anchor. But the entourage's cruelty was relentless, their laughter a chorus that echoed her isolation. She kept walking, her silence a testament to her strength. But the physicality of their mockery burned, a wound the audience could feel. As Evelyn was pushed toward the piano, a cluster of guests blocked her path, their curiosity cruel. "Where did you even get that dress?" one woman asked, her voice loud and mocking. "A thrift shop clearance." Another, a man with a monocle, leaned in. "Tell us. Girl, what's your family name? No one's heard of you." The questions were a barrage, each one a probe into her supposed insignificance. Evelyn's sapphire ring glinted, but her hands trembled faintly, the invasion overwhelming. "She's probably a nobody's daughter," a third guest said, laughing. "No wonder she's hiding in the back." The crowd around them joined in, their laughter a chorus of contempt. Evelyn kept moving, her eyes on the piano. But the guests' interrogation was a public dissection, meant to strip her of dignity. Her silence was her armor, but the personal nature of their attacks burned, a wound the audience could feel viscerally. She reached the velvet ropes, and a guard hesitated, then stepped aside, cowed by her quiet resolve. A renowned music critic, seated near the front, scribbled in his notebook as Evelyn approached the piano, his voice carrying to nearby guests. "This is a travesty," he said, his tone acidic, letting an amateur touch a Steinway. "It's sacrilege." He adjusted his glasses, his pen slashing across the page. "She'll butcher whatever she plays, probably some nursery rhyme." The guests around him nodded, their laughter sharp and eager. Evelyn overheard, her heart racing, but she kept her eyes on the keys, her fingers hovering. The critic's words were a professional condemnation, his authority lending weight to the crowd's scorn. "I'll have to review this farce," he muttered, loud enough for her to hear. "A waste of a gallows." The room's anticipation grew, each word a nail in Evelyn's coffin. She sat, her posture unbroken. But the critic's sneer was a reminder that even her talent was prejudged, her worth dismissed before she played a note. As Evelyn neared the Steinway, a gala organizer, a woman in a tailored suit, intercepted her, her voice low but cutting. "Don't embarrass us," she said, her eyes scanning Evelyn's dress with disdain. "This is a prestigious event, not a place for your little fantasies." The crowd nearby overheard, their smirks growing. "If you damage that piano, you'll be blacklisted from every arts venue in Europe," she continued, her tone a mix of pity and threat. Evelyn's heart pounded, but she met the organizer's gaze, her sapphire ring a quiet rebellion. The warning was a power play, meant to intimidate her into retreat. "Stick to your corner next time," the organizer added, loud enough for others to hear. The guests chuckled, the organizer's authority lending weight to their scorn. Evelyn's silence held, but the public reprimand was a final blow, framing her as a liability before she even played. The audience's anger surged, the organizer's condescension a stark reminder of Evelyn's isolation. The room watched, waiting for her to falter, to prove their superiority. As Evelyn was led toward the stage, a prominent donor, his tuxedo adorned with a gold pin, stood and addressed the crowd. "Is this a charity case?" he called out, his voice booming, letting the help play the Steinway. "What's next?" The kitchen staff singing opera. The room erupted in laughter, the chandeliers amplifying the sound. Evelyn's steps slowed, her black dress catching the light, but she kept moving, her face composed. The donor continued, emboldened. "Someone tell her this isn't a community center recital." His wife nodded, her diamonds flashing. "She'll ruin the piano's tone," she added, her voice dripping with disdain. The crowd's amusement was a wave, crashing over Evelyn, each laugh a reminder of her perceived worthlessness. She reached the bench, her hands steady, but the donor's words echoed, a public shaming meant to break her. Her sapphire ring glinted, a quiet defiance, but the humiliation was a fire she couldn't ignore. Charlotte followed, her heels clicking like a metronome. "Careful," she hissed as Evelyn sat at the bench. "That piano's worth more than your entire life." The words were a final dagger, meant to break her. The chandeliers blazed above, casting Evelyn in a pool of light, her plain dress a stark contrast to the gala's extravagance. The crowd leaned forward, their smirks sharp, their glasses paused mid-sip. Evelyn placed her hands on the keys, her fingers steady now, the trembling gone. She didn't look at Charlotte, didn't acknowledge the laughter. Her breath was slow, her posture regal, as if the piano were an extension of her soul. The room held its breath, expecting a stumble, a childish tune. Then, the first notes rang out clean, cold, precise, not a beginner's waltz, not a recital standard. It was Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody. No, 2, the full version, played at twice the tempo, a piece that demanded genius tier technique. The opening bars exploded, a cascade of arpeggios and trills, each note a defiance of their mockery. The room froze, glasses clinked as hands faltered. Conversations died mid-sentence. Evelyn's fingers flew, navigating the piece's impossible runs and double octaves with a ferocity that was both storm and symphony. No sheet music, no hesitation, no breath breaks. Her ponytail swayed, strands loosening, but her focus was unbreakable, her hands a blur over the keys. The piano sang, its voice filling the marble hall, each note a rebuke to the laughter that had preceded it. A critic in the front row dropped his pen, his mouth open. A debutante clutched her necklace, her smirk gone, Charlotte's face drained of color, her diamond choker suddenly garish against her paling skin. The piece's tempo accelerated, Evelyn's fingers dancing through glissandos that seemed to defy physics, her precision a blade cutting through the room's arrogance. The audience was no longer mocking, they were witnessing, humbled by a force they couldn't comprehend. A professor from the Royal Conservatory, seated near the stage, leaned forward, his hands trembling. "She's Evelyn Hart," he murmured, his voice barely audible but piercing. "The one who turned down Juilliard, who was invited to perform with Lisitsa at 17, then vanished after her mother committed suicide on stage when it was revealed she bribed Evelyn's scholarship." The words spread like wildfire, whispers rippling through the crowd. Evelyn Hart, the prodigy who'd stunned the world, then disappeared, her name a ghost in music circles. Her mother's scandal had shattered her. The headlines brutal, a stage suicide, a tainted legacy. Evelyn had walked away, choosing silence, anonymity, a life of humility. But the piano remembered her. And now, so did the room. Her fingers pounded the keys, the Rhapsody's climax building, each chord a reclamation of her truth. The crowd was silent, not out of disdain, but awe, their earlier cruelty exposed as ignorance. Evelyn's past flickered in her mind, unbidden but vivid. Her mother, a pianist herself, had pushed her relentlessly, her love tangled with ambition, the scholarship, the bribe, the public disgrace. It had broken them both. Evelyn had been 16. standing in the wings as her mother collapsed. The stage lights unforgiving, she'd fled the music world, burying her talent in a small town, teaching children to play simple scales, but the piano had always called. Its voice a whisper she couldn't ignore. Tonight, under the chandeliers, that whisper became a roar. Her fingers struck the final chords. The rhapsody's cadence, a thunderclap that echoed off the marble. The piece ended, abrupt and perfect, leaving a silence so profound it was almost sacred. No one clapped, not because they didn't want to, because they didn't dare. The room was a cathedral, and Evelyn was its deity. Her black dress a mantle of power, as Evelyn's final notes echoed. The hall's double doors swung open, a gust of cool air sweeping through. Julian Voss, Evelyn's husband, stepped inside, his tailored black suit immaculate, his presence a storm of authority. The crowd turned, whispers rippling Julian Voss, the reclusive billionaire who funded half the gala's endowments. Unseen in public for years, his gray eyes locked on Evelyn, then scanned the room, pinning Charlotte and her entourage. "You dared mock my wife," he said, his voice low but resonant, each word a verdict. The room froze, the chandeliers dimming under his gaze. Evelyn Hart, the greatest pianist of her generation, reduced to your entertainment. The professor nodded, his earlier revelation now amplified. Julian's arrival, prompted by Mia's call, was a reckoning, his power a shield for Evelyn's triumph. The audience felt a surge of satisfaction, his entrance a thunderclap that shifted the room's power, humbling the elite who'd scorned her. The music critics, once scornful, stood, their notebooks forgotten. The lead critic, who'd called her performance a travesty, tore his earlier notes, his hands shaking. "She's redefined Liszt," he said, his voice loud enough for the room to hear. "This is a masterclass." His colleagues nodded, their pens now scribbling praise, their earlier disdain replaced by reverence. The crowd murmured, the shift palpable. As the critics' authority validated Evelyn's genius, Charlotte's face crumpled, her Vienna training now trivial in comparison. The donor who'd mocked her sat down, his gold pin dull against his shame. Evelyn's sapphire ring gleamed, a symbol of her triumph. As the critics' reversal turned the room's narrative on its head, the audience felt a surge of satisfaction. Knowing the gatekeepers of music had bowed to the woman they'd dismissed, Julian stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence. "This gala thrives on my investments," he said, his eyes on the donors and organizers. "But no more. I'm redirecting my funds to a foundation in Evelyn's name, for true artists, not pretenders." The donor with the gold pin paled, his earlier mockery now a liability. "Your clinics, your estates, they rely on my network." Julian continued, turning to Oliver's family. "Expect those ties severed by dawn." The room gasped. The financial blow, a public dismantling of the elite's power. Charlotte's entourage shrank back, their wealth irrelevant. Evelyn stood by the piano, her sapphire ring gleaming, her silence now a crown beside Julian's might. The audience reveled in the justice, Julian's wealth turning the mocker's privilege into dust, a perfect counterpoint to Evelyn's musical triumph. Charlotte stood frozen, her entourage silent, their earlier giggles now a memory of shame. "It's you," Charlotte whispered, her voice cracking. "You're that prodigy." Evelyn rose from the bench, her movements slow, deliberate. She didn't respond at first, her eyes tracing the piano's curves, its keys still warm from her touch. Then, she looked at Charlotte, her gaze steady, unyielding. "Yes," she said softly, "and thank you, Mum, for reminding me I'm not dead yet." The words were quiet, but they landed like a slap, stripping Charlotte of her arrogance. Charlotte tried to regain her composure, stepping toward the piano as Evelyn rose. But the crowd's attention remained on Evelyn. "She's remarkable," a donor whispered, ignoring Charlotte's attempt to speak. The professor from the Royal Conservatory approached, bypassing Charlotte entirely. "Miss Hart, your technique is unparalleled," he said, his voice carrying. Charlotte's diamond choker seemed to choke her, her earlier arrogance exposed as hollow. The entourage who'd mocked Evelyn's hair and dress stood silent, their heads bowed, as guests turned away from them. She thought she could outshine a prodigy, a critic muttered, loud enough for Charlotte to hear. The room's rejection was a public shaming. Charlotte's status as the gala's star erased in moments. Evelyn's silence, once a target, now commanded the hall. Her triumph a mirror to Charlotte's fall. Julian turned to Charlotte, his gaze unrelenting. "You called her worthless," he said, his voice a blade. "Yet your Vienna training pales before her genius. Your name will never grace a stage I fund again." Charlotte's diamond choker seemed to tighten, her face crumpling as guests whispered, their loyalty shifting. "You orchestrated this humiliation," Julian continued. "But you've only exposed your own emptiness." The entourage who'd tugged Evelyn's hair stood frozen, their earlier bravado gone. The professor nodded, his earlier praise now a backdrop to Julian's verdict. Evelyn's performance had silenced the room, but Julian's words were a guillotine, stripping Charlotte of her status. The audience felt a thrill, Charlotte's public shaming a poetic reversal, her arrogance dismantled by the man who loved the woman she'd mocked. The professor approached the stage, his eyes wet, but Evelyn was already moving toward the logistics area, where Mia waited, tears streaming down her face. "You didn't tell me," Mia whispered, her voice thick. Evelyn smiled faintly, her fingers brushing the sapphire ring on her hand, a gift from her mother, the only jewelry she wore. "I didn't need to," she said. The gala continued, but its rhythm had shifted. Critics whispered her name, donors reevaluated their priorities, and debutantes sat in stunned silence, their resumes suddenly trivial. Evelyn's performance wasn't just a piece, it was a reckoning, a reminder that talent didn't need a pedigree, that genius could wear a cotton dress. The critics began scribbling notes, their reviews already forming Evelyn Hart's resurrection at Cavendish Castle. The donors murmured about scholarships in her name, their wealth now a tool to honor her. As Evelyn walked back to the logistics area, Charlotte's entourage approached, their faces flushed with shame. The girl who'd tugged her ponytail stepped forward, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry," she said, her gown no longer a shield. "We didn't know." "You're incredible," others nodded, their earlier laughter now a weight they couldn't shed. The crowd watched, the entourage's apology a public surrender, their status diminished. Evelyn paused, her eyes meeting theirs, but she didn't speak. Her silence was enough, a judgment more powerful than words. The sapphire ring on her finger gleamed, a reminder of her mother's belief in her. Now validated by the room's respect, the audience's heart swelled. The entourage's regret a testament to Evelyn's transformative performance, a moment of justice that left her mockers humbled. The donors, once dismissive, huddled near the stage, their voices urgent. "We must fund a scholarship in her name," one said, his gold pin now a symbol of his regret. "Evelyn Hart's return is a cultural event," another added, pulling out his checkbook. The crowd overheard, their murmurs growing. As the donor's wealth became a tool to honor Evelyn, Oliver, the trust fund heir, stood frozen, his earlier sneers now a liability. As his family's foundation scrambled to align with Evelyn's legacy, the girl with the crimson lips clutched her purse, her pearls irrelevant. As the donors ignored her family's influence, Evelyn's performance had shifted their priorities. Her talent a currency they couldn't ignore, her sapphire ring caught the light, a beacon of her reclaimed power. As the donor's pledge cemented her triumph, the audience felt a thrill, knowing Evelyn's genius had redirected the gala's wealth and influence. A lasting victory over her mockers. The gala organizer who'd warned Evelyn approached, her tailored suit now a symbol of her regret. "Mrs. Voss. Mr. Voss," she said, her voice trembling. "We were wrong. Please, accept our deepest apologies." The crowd watched. The organizer's public mea culpa, a surrender of her authority. Julian's gaze was cold, but Evelyn touched his arm, her silence softening the moment. "Let them learn," she said softly, her sapphire ring catching the light. The organizer bowed her head, her earlier threat now a stain. Other staff followed, their apologies a wave of contrition. As the room's hierarchy shifted, the audience's heart swelled. The organizer's regret a testament to Evelyn's triumph and Julian's power. A moment of justice that left the mockers humbled. Julian's presence had turned the gala's gatekeepers into supplicants. Their scorn erased by Evelyn's genius and his resolve. The Steinway, once a symbol of exclusivity, now bore Evelyn's mark. The gala's organizers announced that no one else would play it that night. A decision met with nods of approval. "It's hers," a critic whispered, his voice reverent. The velvet ropes were tightened. The piano elevated to a shrine, its keys sacred after Evelyn's touch. Charlotte's planned performance was quietly cancelled. Her name struck from the program. Her Vienna training irrelevant. Oliver and the crimson-lipped girl stood on the sidelines, their earlier mockery now a stain they couldn't erase. The crowd's respect for the piano was a respect for Evelyn, her genius rewriting its legacy. Her black dress, once mocked, was now iconic. Her talent a force that had sanctified the instrument. The audience felt a final surge of triumph, knowing the piano's exclusivity now served Evelyn's legend. A permanent rebuke to her detractors, Julian addressed the crowd, his voice steady but fierce. "Evelyn's talent will not be silenced again," he said, his hand brushing hers. "I'm building a conservatory in her name, where artists like her can thrive, free from your prejudice." The donors nodded, their earlier dismissal now a liability. As Julian's wealth promised a legacy beyond the gala, Oliver and the crimson-lipped girl stood on the sidelines, their family's influence dwarfed by Julian's vision. The professor murmured, "A new era for music," his words a seal on Evelyn's triumph. The Steinway gleamed, its sanctity tied to Evelyn's future, not the elite's past. The audience felt a final surge of triumph, Julian's pledge ensuring Evelyn's genius would outlast her mockers, a permanent rebuke to their cruelty. His love and power had elevated her victory, making the gala a footnote in her reborn legacy. Evelyn sat back in her chair, her eyes on the floor, but her heart was steady. Her silence no longer a shield but a crown. Oliver, the trust fund heir, stood near the bar, his glass untouched, his earlier bravado gone. He avoided Evelyn's corner, his face flushed with shame. The girl with the crimson lips, who'd mocked her childhood, clutched her purse, her pearls dull against her regret. Charlotte remained by the stage, her diamond choker a weight she couldn't shed. She tried to speak, to salvage her dignity, but no one listened. The room had moved on, its focus on Evelyn, the prodigy who'd returned. The gala's music resumed, a string quartet filling the air, but it felt hollow after Evelyn's performance. Guests glanced her way, their eyes a mix of awe and guilt. She sat quietly, her hands folded, the sapphire ring catching the light. Her mother's face flashed in her mind, not the broken woman on the stage, but the one who'd taught her to play, her hands guiding Evelyn's over the keys. That woman had believed in her. Even if her methods were flawed, Evelyn had carried that belief through years of anonymity, through nights of doubt. Tonight, she'd honored it, not for the crowd, but for herself. The chandeliers dimmed slightly, the gala winding down, but Evelyn's presence lingered, a force that had rewritten the room's hierarchy. She was no longer the plus one, the village girl, the joke. She was Evelyn Hart, and the piano had proclaimed it. The hall began to empty, guests filing out, their whispers a hum of reverence. Evelyn stood, smoothing her dress, and walked toward the exit with Mia. The professor caught her arm, his voice urgent. "You must return to the stage," he said. "The world needs you." Evelyn smiled, but shook her head. "The world can wait," she said. "I played for me." She stepped into the cool night, the castle's lights fading behind her. The piano's echo followed, a reminder of her power, her resilience. Charlotte and her entourage were left behind, their names irrelevant, their cruelty a footnote. The gala would be remembered not for its opulence, but for the woman who'd turned mockery into music, silence into triumph. Evelyn's steps were light, her heart unburdened, her talent no longer a secret but a flame that burned bright. Like what you saw then, share, comment below what you felt. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories where karma plays piano.